A few years ago, I made a video about this shitty animated kids movie called Titanic the Legend Goes On. I'll admit, I sound like a crazy person in that video and will probably take it down to remake it, but that movie was just horrible. It had so many historical inaccuracies and ripped off other classic kids movies. Unfortunately for my sanity, there's another movie called The Legend of the Titanic, which is also a 90-minute Italian animated kids movie. Not so fun fact, according to the Wikipedia page, a North Korean-based company was involved in production. So, fascism aside, let's tear this dumpster fire to shreds. This script was such a bitch for me to write because there's a B plot with the mice, and a C plot with the antagonist, and the A plot has the main love story, oh, and not to mention the D plot where there's the talking sea animals. In an attempt to try and keep this review organized, and to keep me from losing my mind from overstimulation, I'm going to review the events in the order that they happen, but I have provided chapters and aids so it's easier to tell which subplot I'm referring to. Before I get into specifics and start reviewing this in chronological order, I'm just going to quickly go over some general criticisms that apply to the film as a whole. To start off, we've got plenty of instances where the lips aren't properly synced to the audio. My guess is that it may have been originally animated in Italian and redubbed in English, or they just didn't have a high budget. Titanic The Legend Goes On also had that same issue. This isn't super problematic in the grand scheme of things, though. I'm already giving you guys some low expectations, but I guarantee you're still going to be disappointed when I finish this review. And just like Titanic The Legend Goes On, this movie also makes it its mission to rip off other movies. This one is focused more on the 1997 Titanic, like the James Cameron one, before it goes off the rails, so it's not quite as bad as Titanic The Legend Goes On, which also ripped off the James Cameron Titanic, Cinderella, and vaguely copied 101 Dalmatians in one of its like wacky subplots. The exterior shots that we get of the Titanic throughout this movie are also really badly lit. It makes it look like a damn horror movie. Which, to be honest, it technically is, considering that it's scary to watch a well-documented tragedy get completely butchered in this movie. Before I say anything else, take a look at this clip.
Listen to what it says in this old paper. Tragic ending to the maiden voyage of the Titanic. The liner goes down. 100 missing. A lot of people died, huh?
This is relatively straightforward, and he's absolutely correct. Out of the 2,200 passengers on board the Titanic in real life, 1,500 of them, which is the majority, died. Now remember this scene for later because I'm going to reference it again. The A-plot is an obvious ripoff from the James Cameron Titanic movie, which came out in 1997, and it was actually an awesome movie. The main character, Elizabeth/Rose, is old money and pressured to marry that Maltravers dude who's basically Cal from the original Titanic, but he's a whaler and he's way older. There's also the family pressure since Ruth and the stepmom in this movie are carbon copies. Now who's Jack, you might ask? This dude, his name's Juan, and just like the 1997 Titanic, Liz and Juan fall in love and Maltravers and the stepmom try to intervene. The way they intervene, however, is goofier than you could ever imagine, but we'll get to that later. Just like Titanic The Legend Goes On, we got talking animals, so thanks a lot, North Korea. We start off with a filler scene that introduces all the mice, where Grandpa Mouse takes an oddly long amount of time to take attendance for all the mice. My guess, this is filler to extend the runtime. Here we establish a love story between Grandpa Mouse and Stella, who we literally do not see again until the very end of this movie. And after this, things get real interesting. Not really, but it does get more ridiculous. They then introduce Ronnie, who's from Brazil, but has an American accent for some reason, and he came over to Britain to learn soccer.
You're Brazilian, aren't you? What brought you all the way here to Great Britain, if I may ask?
I came here to learn your national pastime, soccer.
This kid's a poser, nobody calls it soccer instead of America and Canada. So as Grandpa Mouse and Ronnie work on boarding everyone, we then get this lovely filler scene where Ronnie shows off his soccer skills. I mean, at least it's somewhat relevant since we do see more of Ronnie's soccer skills later in the movie. The love story here is actually pretty similar to the love story in Titanic The Legend Goes On, in the sense that both male love interests are kind of creepy and they fall in love way too fast. Tell me why after making eye contact for a couple of seconds and Juan finding Liz's glove, his immediate thought is to smell it. Like, you're in public, bro, calm down. He even has the Edward Cullen looking sideburns. Honestly, the dumbest part about this is the reaction from Maltravers, the stepmom, and that other woman who's there for some reason. Just for convenience purposes, I'm gonna call all of these antagonists the Felon 45 Squad. I'll explain that nickname later on. I love how they interpret eye contact, Juan smelling the glove, and the non-reaction from Liz as true love, and think it's gonna disrupt their whaling plans, which we're gonna get into later. We then cut to Maltravers and his lapdog scheming in some dark room and then get the big reveal. Maltravers wants to marry Liz because her dad's a duke who can let him monopolize the whaling industry. I mean, the domestic terrorism that we see later on could, in theory, make this work. If he didn't live in a world with talking animals, he's also really rich. Like, just lobby Congress, that's what everyone else does. Or better yet, pull an Elon Musk and spread propaganda supporting a politician that'll do exactly what you want and give you special permission to screw up our country for your own gain. Now you know why I called them the Felon 45 Squad instead of the Felon 47 Squad. Because that awful act of domestic terrorism we had in our country took place when Trump was the 45th president. For patriotic, national security, and all in all reasonable moral reasons, don't ever do any of what I just mentioned. I'm gonna stop now before this turns into a full-blown tangent about the US political climate.
Excuse me, Captain. They're waiting for you in the first-class dining room. They're all impatient to start the evening.
Oh, very well. I'm on my way. There's only one thing worse than a party, and that's a gala evening.
We then go over to the gala dinner where they announce Liz and Maltravers as the hottest new couple, even though they aren't even dating or engaged. Liz actually has the balls to call everyone out and storm off, so I do commend that for not completely copying Rose, who just ran out without calling anyone out until much later in the 1997 Titanic. Then they go ahead and make it goofy by pitting the mice against the Felon 45 Squad, and Ronnie develops feelings for Liz, sounding as creepy as he possibly can. This also doesn't get addressed later on in the movie, so there's that.
I'll see her in my dreams for the rest of my life.
I hate to be a spoil sport, but I would like to draw to your attention the fact that she's a woman and you're a mouse.
Well, there's one thing I'm not, and that's a racist.
Then Elizabeth starts crying while out on the deck, and her magic moonbeam tears land in the ocean, and she's able to communicate with the dolphins. I'm fully serious, guys. Hold on to your drinks, everyone, because here comes the deep plot. Right off the bat, the deck is really high up, so there's no way Liz would be able to even hear them. Maybe the network of magic moonbeams solved that problem, though. We see the dolphin right here hovering in mid-air while talking to Liz, which I guess is also a problem solved by the magic moonbeam network. Anyways, while this important exchange is going on, Ronnie's going on about how these dolphins would make great soccer players, and serves as an accurate representation of my brain during a useless gen ed class. These dolphins somehow know about Maltravers' past history with whaling, and tell Liz that she has to stop him since they're besties with the whales. Because Maltravers can't be bothered to just lobby Congress the way normal corrupt people and corporations do, his henchman tells the shark to get ready to sink the ship, even though they have no reason to do so considering that his plan to get the rights through marrying Liz hasn't failed yet. To be fair, however, sinking the ship would likely just be a backup plan at this point. Also, does the henchman also have magic moonbeams? Why is he able to talk to the sharks as well? By the way, we have talking sharks, although you probably expected that because this movie's already getting really ridiculous. After 20 minutes of not seeing Juan, we finally see him again. No joke, I actually forgot all about him because of all these other side stories. It sounds like he also consumed magic moonbeams, because he's talking to the dog about Liz while in public. I swear, all these characters would get a few side eyes from the general public thinking that they're on some substance. Dude, quit being weird. Oh, also, Liz told her dad about not wanting to marry Maltravers, and he took it surprisingly well, so, that was anticlimactic. Anyways, Juan's dog Smiley meets Grandpa Mouse and Ronnie after getting kicked out of some ball, and they all team up and turn into wingmen for Juan and Liz. The next day, they make life hell for all the ship's employees. We got assaulting Maltravers, which is justified, disturbing the peace, and contaminating all the laundry. Smiley then creates hell on all pet owners by getting all the dogs on board to get to the deck where Juan and Liz are supposed to meet, which causes their owners to chase after them and I guess give up and not look for them. Why the hell are there so many unattended dogs here? Also, is Juan not wondering where the hell Smiley is while they're planning all of this? The mice then proceed to do the same by presumably breaking and entering into some rando's room and freeing their birds to commence their little plan. This movie is basically just domestic terrorism versus disturbing the peace, like, take your pick.
You're right, Smiley. Smoking should be forbidden in here. We should go up on deck and get some fresh air. So let's go.
And of course, Juan is still being creepy with a glove in hand. He appears to still be high on moonbeam shrooms because he talks to Smiley and conveniently says smoking indoors shouldn't be allowed before heading upstairs for fresh air. Meanwhile, the mice trick Liz into heading there too. They say,
Smiley, we
right when Liz and Juan are supposed to walk up, even though anyone with peripheral vision would be able to see them by now. As I creepily watch this slow-mo scene of ripoff Jack and Rose walking up to each other, Liz and Juan silently stare at each other for an uncomfortably long time. And then, an orchestra of rats starts playing romantic music. So much for leaving them alone. They then dance on the deck, which should have people on it. There's a lot of people on board, it's the middle of the day. Like, why are they the only ones on the deck? Once done, they kiss each other despite not having exchanged any words apart from,
May I have this dance?
I mean, at least in the 1997 Titanic, Jack and Rose talk before all the other stuff happens.
I don't know how to thank you, my friends. You've made me the happiest man in the whole world.
You don't even have her name, bro. This concludes with the dragged-out filler scene of everyone celebrating and the Felon 45 henchmen doing some self-reflection, which ends up going nowhere, therefore making this additional filler. Liz tells the dad and stepmom that she's in love with Juan immediately afterwards, even though she already knows at this point that the stepmom is in cahoots with Maltravers. It also hasn't even been 24 hours since she met Juan. Of course the stepmom snitched to Maltravers, and Felon 45 officially plans to commit their act of domestic terrorism, but don't worry, the mice heard it all and they're here to save the day. God damn it, why did I do this to myself? So because Maltravers attempts to send a transmission telling his company or whoever to resume whaling, the mice sabotage the telegraph. Couldn't they have just one of them running around to get the officer's attention while the rest of them just chew through the paper with the message? Grandpa Mouse then gets this genius idea that totally doesn't age poorly later on in this dumpster fire.
I don't know which one the telegraph wire is. We don't have time to figure out which wire is which. We're gonna chew through every single one of those things. Just get your teeth in gear.
From there, we immediately cut to Felon 45's completely flawless plan.
The ship has to sink tonight, but remember, not a second before midnight, or else all your work will have been for nothing.
Consider it done, Pally. Midnight on the dot.
What the hell do the sharks even get out of this? Also, what's the shark even on?
One more thing, Jeffy boy. As you go through life telling people what to do, remember, nobody who threatens a shark lives to tell the tale, if you catch my drift.
Nobody tell this guy how shark fin soup is made. We then get a scene where the main shark in the prison uniform, no idea why he's wearing that, reveals how they're going to bring the ship down. They trick Tentacles, the sweetheart giant octopus, to hurl an iceberg at it, while the rest of the sharks put their teeth on the rudders to keep it from diverting. I wasn't lying when I told you this movie was ridiculous. I decided to Google it if it's possible for sharks to even do this, even though I already knew the answer, and surprise, surprise, it isn't. This isn't super important, but Tentacles looks way too big. Giant octopi aren't as big as whales, meanwhile the orca looks like an ant in comparison to him. But I'll let this slide, he's one of the few characters that I actually like. Everyone else either has no personality, is creepy, or just a complete moron. Not to say that Tentacles is smart, even though octopi in real life are some of the most intelligent animals, he's just the least stupid among most of these characters. But to go back to my original point, the scale is completely off for all these animals, because why is the orca smaller than the sharks? He should be towering over all of these people. Tentacles then blast the iceberg up to the surface like a damn cannon. Another stupid Google search later, and surprise, surprise, octopi aren't that strong. They can actually move over 700 pounds, but according to the Wikipedia, the iceberg would have weighed about 2 megatons, which an octopi definitely can't move on its own. This isn't something I'm going to take super seriously because we've clearly seen dumber in this movie, but it was still pretty ridiculous that Tentacles could shoot that iceberg up so easily.
Tentacles, there's something suspicious going on here. I've never seen a shark playing a game in my life.
Get a couple of the boys and grab that pint-sized, nosy, skunk-colored so-called killer whale and lock him up in the old shipwreck, but make sure nobody sees you.
And everyone just got dumber because why the hell are the sharks saying they need to lock up the orca directly in earshot of Tentacles and the orca, who miraculously didn't hear them? Tentacles also just doesn't ask any follow-up questions to the orca, who's still right there, and just goes for the shot without thinking. I'm calling it now, the orca's the only smart character in this movie. We're finally back on the ship following Smiley, who distracts the officer at the telegraph and steals the paper with the whaling message on it because the officer seems to have poor peripheral vision. This scene makes it clear that it wasn't even necessary to destroy all the telegraph's cables, but you know the saying, the only way to counter domestic terrorism is to create some public safety hazards. Taking out all the wires was simply a lazy plot device to just cause issues later on in the movie because they have to drag out their runtime somehow. Speaking of stupid, we go back to Maltravers. After Liz rightfully ruined his whaling monopoly plans by rejecting him, he lures her dad into his room where the butler holds him at gunpoint and forces him to sign over exclusive whaling rights, or else Liz and Juan die. Then for some reason they tie up the dad and leave him in the room alone, even though their plan is to let him go down with the ship when it sinks. I mean, what could possibly go wrong? Couldn't that henchman guy at least stick around to keep an eye on him until the ship's flooded enough to cause a panic? That's the one thing they could have copied from James Cameron's Titanic, by the way. Because guess what? Lovejoy kept an eye on Jack when they chained him up. Also, while the ship was sinking. That was really stupid, but come on, you're gonna be a domestic terrorist, do it right. Well, anyway, don't worry, some random dog had his ear to the door, and he's ready to save the day by getting our marginally less stupid protagonist involved. Tentacles officially throws the iceberg, and the stupid dolphins conveniently show up 2 seconds after to tell him he's been tricked, and they sound like complete dickheads while doing so. Where the hell were you guys when this whole thing started? Anyway, the dolphins then berate Tentacles since they need someone to scapegoat because they couldn't have been smart enough to, I don't know, patrol the nearby waters and do surveillance? They probably would have heard about the shark's involvement before they tricked Tentacles if they'd actually thought this through. The dumbass Felon 45 squad decides to hijack a lifeboat before the iceberg even hits. Their genius plan? To escape into the vast Atlantic Ocean with no map, no supplies, and no survival skills. They're about as prepared as someone bringing paper towel to a flood. As for the dogs who overheard them earlier, he gets Smiley and a few other dogs to run over to the lifeboat and start making some noise, alerting the crew that Felon 45 stealing a lifeboat. For a group of villains who committed domestic terrorism with the help of animals, they really didn't plan for other animals to attempt to stop them. And while the ship is about to make contact with the iceberg, the dolphins think it's a good idea to fight I almost said fight the shit off the rudders. The dolphins think it's a good idea to fight the sharks off the rudder themselves, instead of just telling Tentacles what's going on and getting him to fight them and help divert the ship. It's been established that he's unrealistically powerful in this movie, so he'd easily overpower everyone here if he wasn't crying from getting berated from the dumbass dolphins. Considering that he eats a whole squad of sharks several feet away later on, the collision literally could have been avoided if the dolphins just told him how to fix it. The pacing of the ship sinking is really fast, but what else can you expect from this movie? I mean, at least they got that right. It's probably better that it's sinking so fast, because it kind of makes this nightmare end quicker for me. I actually attempted to make this video in 2022. I couldn't do it, and now I had to struggle to rewrite the script, because I had to rewatch this crappy movie. The mice then decide to warn Juan and Elizabeth that the ship is sinking and that they need to get to a lifeboat, as if that wasn't blatantly obvious. But, you know what, since this movie has a surplus of character stupidity, good on the mice for warning them just in case. To give this movie some credit, which I'm going to revoke in a second, they do show Captain Edward Smith saying that he'll go down with the ship. He actually did go down with the ship in real life. He then tells the crew to send out an SOS, which, surprise surprise, leads to more filler to the runtime since Grandpa Mouse's genius idea of taking out the whole damn communication system, yeah, it aged like milk. I mean, at least they fix it by using this dude's mustache to connect the wires. As if this damn movie wasn't already long enough at the 5-minute mark. I actually decided to write a poem about this mouse. Mustache Mouse dies, everyone else cries, but psych, wait till that ending that I dislike. We then cut to the dolphins getting chased by the sharks. They then call out to Tentacles by saying this genius line to convince him to help.
Tentacles, come help us! It's all your fault this happened! Hurry!
Oh dear, what have I done? I'd better go check.
Yeah, way to encourage him to help you by wrongfully blaming him. This movie really made it its goal to portray all these really smart animals like dolphins and octopi to just be complete morons. Tentacles then redeems himself by finding and freeing the orca who somehow knew about the dolphins needing their help. This implies one of two things. The writers either forgot that the orca didn't know anything about what the dolphins were up to, or the dolphins found the orca before Tentacles and just didn't free him and instead used that as an opportunity to talk shit about Tentacles. Knowing this movie, it's a 50-50 chance between writer stupidity or character stupidity. Tentacles then effortlessly grabs a bunch of sharks swimming around and proceeds to yeet them several hundred feet away before running to the ship. Yes, I said running. The animators made it appear as if he was running even though octopi don't move like that, but you know what, at least Tentacles is actually doing something unlike the dolphins. We're back to the mice now. They're gathered on the ship's deck, ready to evacuate, when the captain tells them to stay out of sight from the humans, even though A, they're extremely visible, and B, the humans are too busy getting off the ship to even care. I mean, we saw that in Titanic. Nobody cared about the rats just running around. Captain also then says,
"The best of British luck to all of you!"
even though he has a Scottish accent. Now, Captain Mouse isn't the sharpest tool in the shed, but at least he's not as dumb as this officer who, through a megaphone, yells,
"There's room for everyone!"
When referring to the lifeboats, even though that blatantly wasn't true, they didn't have enough lifeboats or enough time to deploy them all at full capacity, even if they did have adequate lifeboats. There's actually a documentary on Disney Plus with James Cameron testing the theory that more lifeboats would have saved everyone, which I've linked in the description. Consider checking it out, it's actually pretty interesting, especially if you're a Titanic enthusiast. Anyways, Liz and Juan then find the dad tied up and rescue him. Nothing dumb about that, surprisingly. Rare moment of no character stupidity. Plus, Grandpa Mouse has the right attitude.
There's not a second to lose. Get to the lifeboats as fast as you can.
For some reason, Liz and Juan get the dad in a lifeboat, but then the two of them just leave and head downstairs. I mean, even though it's historically inaccurate, the movie did establish that there's enough lifeboats, so why are they leaving? What are they leaving for? The last we saw of Tentacles and the Orca, they took care of the sharks, so naturally, as they see the Titanic sinking, they decide that now's the perfect time to freak out and self-reflect.
Look! The ship is breaking into 2 pieces!
Oh my goodness, you're right, and it's all my fault. Oh, I'm so sorry, Orky. I wish there was something I could do.
There is! You've got to hold the ship together till all the people can get off!
That sounds impossible, but I'll give it my best shot.
Yeah, this right here is why the Orca is the smartest character in this movie, telling Tentacles to actually do something before freaking out. Tentacles then rushes to the ship and wraps himself around it to keep it together, and for some reason I can only hear very muffled screaming, even though if this happened in real life, everyone would absolutely be crapping their pants at an unusually large octopus holding the ship together. Back to Liz and Juan, they go back downstairs while the ship is literally flooding and falling apart, run from a flood tidal wave, and head back up, which really makes you wonder why they headed back downstairs in the first place. They legit had no reason to back down. I checked. Then Grandpa Mouse gives me yet more reasons to think the damn dolphins are brain dead, because right when Liz and Juan head up in time to see Tentacles saving the day, he tells them that the dolphins want to talk to them. The dolphins make Liz and Juan risk their lives to travel across an unstable ship, only to tell them that they called over the whales to help out, and that Tentacles is a friend, which could have been said after the two were safely off the ship.
Don't be afraid of the octopus. Tentacles is a friend. He's trying to keep the ship together.
The last thing these dolphins said to Tentacles on camera was, "Help us, this is all your fault." My boy Tentacles needs more reasonable friends like the Orca. Tentacles then puts the ship back together like a puzzle and lets go, and somehow the ship doesn't immediately begin sinking again. Then he heads over to Liz and Juan to tell him he feels bad, which also could have waited. Surprise, surprise, the ship starts shaking like crazy because one of its tentacles slipped. Now I know those of you watching are smarter than every single character here, but regardless, always make sure to fix a slippery situation before you cry about it. To rub salt on the wound of historical accuracy, they show a clip of the orchestra playing on the lifeboat, even though it's common knowledge they all went down with the ship. Just read the damn Magic Treehouse book on the Titanic. Anyway, speaking of historical accuracy, remember when I said that I gave them credit for having Edward Smith say that he'd go down with the ship? I'm not gonna take it back, because Tentacles and the Orca saved him. Let's then cut to Liz, Juan, the dog, mice, and the dolphins. Our protagonists never got on a lifeboat because of the stupid dolphins. They just have to talk to them. So, naturally, they have no choice but to jump several feet off the ship, even though in James Cameron Titanic, they just stayed on till it went under. So they should have just done that. But regardless, they jump off the ship, which should have killed them because unlike Minecraft, landing into water from a great height can and will kill or injure you. But don't worry, they get saved by a whale after landing in the water. I don't know how they're not shivering. Most of the deaths in real life are actually caused by hypothermia. Remember at the very beginning of this video when I showed this clip of Grandpa Mouse?
Listen to what it says in this old paper. Tragic ending to the maiden voyage of the Titanic. The liner goes down. 100 missing. A lot of people died, huh?
So, it appears nobody actually died. This is probably the biggest continuity error I've ever seen. Grandpa Mouse in the present literally says,
No, not all. All except the heroes who gave their lives for the rest of us. God bless their memory.
Dude, you started the story by mentioning all of the damage, then end it by saying, psych, nobody actually died except Mustache Mouse and Tentacles? Which is also about to age poorly, just hang on for a second. Fallon 45 ends up going missing, probably because of this henchman's awful rowing. Every single Titanic passenger safely arrives to New York aboard the Carpathia, my bad. And the paperboy is yelling this.
Extra, extra! Read all about it! Happy ending!
For 2 Titanic passages!
How the hell does he even have all this news if the Carpathia is still pulling into the docks? Liz and Juan also literally get married the day after docking. Personally, if I had just survived a shipwreck and saved a bunch of animals, I'd probably rest for a few days, especially to account for all the time zone change and the exhaustion and, potential trauma maybe. But you know what, I guess that's just me. The humans and the mice all have their respective weddings on the same day. No joke, I actually forgot Grandma Mouse existed till I saw her walking down the aisle, because I'm pretty sure we've just seen her once, which was in like the first 5 minutes. Then our main characters rush to the bridge once the wedding's over, where it's revealed that Tentacles is alive. Jesus Christ, is this trying to be like a ripoff of Supernatural or something? Why are nobody's deaths are permanent in this damn movie? Because then the mustache man who died fixing the telegraph makes an appearance here too. Grandpa Mouse's line about the heroes who gave their lives really aged poorly. It was minutes ago, by the way, at this point. Really aged poorly because nobody actually died except for Fallen 45. I'm assuming they died. I don't know. There's not a chance they survived. The final scene then takes us back to the present, where Grandpa Mouse talks about what Ronnie's up to these days and the importance of saving the whales. The grandma then says this, which makes me believe that Grandpa was probably not completely sober when he told this story.
Your grandfather loves to tell stories, but like all sailors, you shouldn't take him too seriously.
As my best friend always says, dolphins are evil, and this movie proves that point. Felon 45 may have committed the domestic terrorism, but the dolphins were the real unsung villains. Time for me to create the conspiracy theory that maybe the dolphins weren't really just dumb and annoying. They acted dumb and annoying to create all these plot conveniences to allow the acts of domestic terrorism to just get worse. Or, of course, it could just be plain old character stupidity. I can't even tell anymore. They were also super mean to Tentacles, which pissed me off. Like, at this point, Tentacles could prevent 9/11 and take out all of Al-Qaeda on the same day, and the dolphins would still find a way to blame him. I'm willing to bet that this is far worse than you imagine. It took me weeks just to rewatch this movie and write the script. At this point, it's hard for me to even criticize the minor nitpicks like the orchestra surviving when we literally have domestic terrorism and an octopus saving the day. On a serious note, it is very insensitive to actual victims and their loved ones to turn this absolute disaster into a save the whales message. The 1997 Titanic was proof that you could add a fictional love story while still being mostly historically accurate and honoring the actual people aboard. People like Molly Brown, Officer Lowe, hell, even that drunk baker whose name was Charles Jowhin, actually existed in real life, and the 1997 Titanic told their stories respectfully, even though the focus was actually on Jack and Rose. All I have to say after sitting through this dumpster fire is I hope I never have to see one of these types of movies made about 9/11 or January 6th. Moral of the story, when making movies about the Titanic, remember these basic fundamentals. People died. There weren't lifeboats. And a giant octopus didn't save anyone. The end. It's not really the end of this video, but the end of the fundamentals. I also wanted to mention that in the 1997 Titanic, they also, showed the ship sinking in such a badass way. Every time I rewatch it, I feel the raw fear and intimidation as the ship progressively gets closer to its doom, which also shows respect to the tragedy by portraying it as something that was horrifying. Unfortunately for this movie, I would have been laughing my ass off if I wasn't internally facepalming from how stupid it was that they needed domestic terrorism plot to sink the ship. The Legend of the Titanic shows us why we need to pay attention in history and know what actually happened. Because, A, don't repeat it, B, don't make shitty movies about it. This movie gave me a massive headache, but I did somewhat enjoy writing the script, because it's fun as hell to review catastrophically dumb movies. Unfortunately for my sanity, there's a sequel called Tentacalino. The Wikipedia summary tells me that it's extremely goofy, so maybe expect a review for that in the future, but with my uploading schedule, it's hard to tell. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe to make my pain reviewing this crap worth it, and remember, don't participate in domestic terrorism by sinking ships. Take care. See you next time.